Practice makes perfect. This is a statement we've all heard at some point, and it's pretty much true all of the time. However, there are exceptions to every rule. And in 1941, a 23-year-old apparently didn't get this memo and proceeded to change the entire art of filmmaking on his first attempt. And he did it in such a way that as an artist, you kind of have to take a step back and look at your own creative process. Orson Welles was always a creative person. He had a little bit of experience directing theater productions. He had a pretty good knack for storytelling, and in 1938, he hosted a radio anthology series for War of the Worlds. It was so effective that a few members of the public actually believed Martians were invading. The whole thing made a good amount of noise, and it gave his name some recognition. And very soon, he inked a deal that was unprecedented at the time and really hasn't been done since. RKO Radio Pictures approached him in 1939 and offered him a deal to write, direct, star in 2 motion pictures with a budget of $500,000.
I mean, everybody knows that you had the most astonishing contract that Hollywood has ever provided.
Yes.
Ever.
Not financially speaking, in terms of authority and
Yes.
rights. Financially, it wasn't extraordinary in any way at all. It was extraordinary in the control it gave me over my own material.
You had total control.
Total control, so much so that the rushes, which I perhaps should explain that are the pieces of film that are shown at the end of the day's work, as I'm sure you understand, and are always checked by everybody in the studio, department heads and the bankers and distributors and everything, long before there's a rough cut. But according to the terms of my contract, the rushes couldn't be seen by anyone. And indeed, the film couldn't be seen until it was ready for release.
Orson Welles was just 23 years old at the time, and he was just handed complete creative control over 2 feature films. He had never, ever made a film before.
I got that good a contract because I didn't really want to make a film.
Well, you better develop that.
And you know, when you don't really want to go out to Hollywood, or at least this was true in the old days, or the golden days of Hollywood, when you honestly didn't want to go, then the deals got better and better. In my case, I didn't want money. I wanted authority. So I asked the impossible, hoping to be left alone. And at the end of a year's negotiations, I got it.
Yes.
Simply because there was no real vocation there. My love for films began only when we started work.
Him, along with Herman J. Mankiewicz, started writing the script, Citizen Kane. Herman originally wrote most of the script, but Welles began to make some heavy revisions, to the point that there were now 7 drafts before the final script. Orson originally wanted solo credit for the screenplay, but later fought for Herman to be shared in the credit. The story was about the life of Charles Foster Kane. He was a fictional character that was based off a couple real people, one of which was William Hearst, a media mogul. This man was incredibly powerful, and this becomes important later on. By now, Orson Welles officially had a script, and he had to now begin making the movie. Veteran cinematographer Greg Toland heard about the picture and approached Orson, convincing him to be a part of it.
And I have the right to say it because I had in my first picture in Kane the greatest cameraman who ever lived, who was Greg Toland. And he came to my office and said, "I want to work in your picture. My name is Toland." I said, "Why do you, Mr. Toland?" He said, "Because you've never made a picture. And you don't know what cannot be done." And so I said, "But I really don't. Can you tell me?" He says, "There's nothing to it." And he gave me the 1.5 lessons. And he was right.
Showed you how the camera works.
That's right. There's nothing to do. And so we had the 1.5, and there it was.
Greg's experience combined with Orson Welles' creativity, eye, and sheer ignorance combined for something pretty amazing.
But the only thing was, I'd been directing in the theater for years, and nowadays they have lighting people. We did then, and I had some of the greatest lighting people, in fact, in the theater, but many of the shows I lit myself, and I was supervised it, and I thought a director did that in a movie. So for the first 10 days, I was moving the lights around, you see. And Toland was behind me, fixing it up and changing the readings and saying, "Shut up, let him go on. I want to see what he's up to," which was very chic of him, I think.
They did things with the camera that had never been done before. Low-angle shots, non-chronological storytelling with flashbacks, long takes with complex staging, and deep focus, allowing everything in the frame to be sharp and in focus. Now, Hearst the media mogul heard about the movie and decided to bury it. He flexed his power, and he told newspapers not to talk about the film, and he also threatened to expose the scandals of Hollywood execs if they mentioned it.
Now, could I just check one other thing with you? Is it true that the Hearsts tried to actually have the film destroyed before it was...
They tried to have it destroyed. They even tried to frame me. One Well, in one town, I was doing some kind of date, I don't know what, bond tour, lecture, some kind of a gig, and I was in a nightclub afterwards, waiting to go back to my hotel, have a little supper. Waiter came up and says, "A police officer wants to see you." Well, I tried to hide, because if that ever happens, I'm sure I'm guilty. I don't know how you are about it, but, you know,
Absolutely.
the minute I see a cop, I know I did it. But there was no way out of it. I had to go see him, and he took me aside, and he said, "Orson," I don't know why they always call me Orson. He says, "Don't go back to your hotel room."
Yeah.
I said, "Why?" He says, "They've got a miner staked out there and a photographer."
A lady?
Yeah, luckily a lady, I think. I prefer to tell it that way.
Oh, no, I meant ER as opposed to OR. I'm sorry. Sorry.
And they were going to frame me. I would have been in jail if
When Citizen Kane was released, it received a very positive critical reception. But at the end, Hearst's efforts to bury the film worked, and it became a commercial flop. The film was so revolutionary, however, that it was still nominated for 9 Oscars, but it only won 1, and the crowd would jeer every time it was mentioned. Many years after it was released, it was widely considered to be the greatest film of all time, and certainly one of the most important. In some modern lists today, it's still up there. Due to its commercial failure, however, no one really gave Orson Welles full creative control ever again, and Hollywood in general became very reluctant giving full creative control to directors. Hearst's move to bury Citizen Kane becomes one of the biggest what-ifs in cinema history. What if Kane made money? How would that change the way studios approach directors? And what other wild shit would have come out of the mind of Orson Welles? Now, this story on its own is pretty fascinating, but really, what does it all mean? As interesting as the media drama is between Orson Welles and Hearst, I'm always more interested by the fact that a 23-year-old changed filmmaking on his first attempt.
What I'd like to know is, where did you get the confidence from to make a film with such...
Ignorance, sheer ignorance. You know, there's no confidence to equal it. It's only when you know something about a profession, I think, that you're timid or careful.
How does ignorance show itself?
I thought you could do anything with a camera that the eye could do or the imagination could do. And if you come up from the bottom in the film business, you're taught all the things that the cameraman doesn't want to attempt for fear he will be criticized for having failed.
Yes.
And in this case, I had a cameraman who didn't care if he was criticized if he failed, and I didn't know that there were things you couldn't do. So anything I could think up in my dreams, I attempted to photograph.
His story is a good reminder for artists that sometimes you just have to throw away the rulebook, to experiment and get uncomfortable. And when you really examine the history of great art and great artists, you realize that the work that stands out was done by people who are pushing boundaries and trying new things. Anyway, this is all just a thought. I hope you enjoyed, I hope it helped, and thanks for watching.